Welcome to She Leads, the official podcast of Women in Product India. I'm Swati Avasthi, and today I'm thrilled to introduce our guest, Pallavi, a multidisciplinary designer with over 9 years of experience blending fine arts, UX, and product thinking. She holds a bachelor's and a master's in fine arts from Delhi University and an MSc in UX design from Kingston University. Pallavi has led mobile first innovations at Edify, designed immersive VR experiences for museums in the Metaverse, and is currently driving AI powered, user centric healthcare access for Africa. Her work spans the UK, India, and Africa, focusing on design thinking, usability testing, and scalable systems that marry aesthetics with deep user empathy. Welcome, Pallavi.
Hi, Swati, and thank you so much for having me. And I'm very excited to talk about everything product and design.
I have my first question for you. So we know that you started your career with a bachelor's in fine arts and then eventually did your master's as well. I'm curious to understand what sparked your interest in fine arts and how that further sparked your interest and translating that into UX design.
100%. While I was a kid, I was the curious person who really wanted to be creative, do everything art, design, craft, all of that. So that was always something that I had in me, even as a child. And as I grew up, it kind of transformed in different forms. Like I used to paint, I used to dance. But during my class 10 or 12, if we were to decide, what's the next step, how you're taking it forward. So that is when I was almost understanding that BFA, or what we call Bachelor's in Fine Arts, is a very holistic kind of a degree. It's not just driven in one direction, but it gives us a very diverse understanding of everything that we need to know about aesthetics, art, design.
Nice.
At that point, I didn't really decide that this is my definite career path, but I wanted to have a complete understanding of it, which is what made me do a bachelor's in finance, and which followed up with the master's, because at the time I was completing bachelor's, I did a few internships, some training programs. I'm a person who doesn't really think a lot in terms of coming to, okay, if I do this, what would happen. So I just take quick decisions
Yeah.
in terms of what can be the next step. How that transformed into UX is actually pretty interesting, because while I was in my master's is when this whole thing became really the topic of the town. If you think of, say, 12 years before today, UX was not even a word. It was basically just design, or it might be interaction design. Product design is one of the things that have come up in the recent times and have come up in a big way. Everybody wants to be a
Yeah.
product designer, UX designer right now.
Yeah.
But what happened for me was during my master's, we had a semester where we had a UX of a project,
Mhm.
and that is what clicked. We had a person from IIT who was visiting our college and taking that 2 months of a workshop activity
Mhm.
where we were creating our own products and own designs, and that really clicked for me. I just enjoyed it thoroughly. I wanted to learn more, I wanted to go in all, and that took me to UK and learning about it in detail.
Nice. That's great to know. I mean, like you learned about this stream that you were super excited about, and then you decided to pursue learning more of that. And that you said that took you to Kingston University to pursue your MSc in UX. Did you like get your first assignment or first career break after your MSc, or did you do some work before MSc?
I did actually. So during my bachelor's, how most students do internships, and post I completed my bachelor's, I did training program with Wonderman Thompson. So that was a 6 months period. But then I soon after that jumped into doing my master's.
Okay.
And while I was completing my master's, actually COVID hit. So
Okay.
I was teaching for a bit. I was teaching in a university, and that was the point where I thought that I really want to do this, and this is something that really drives me. Want to learn about it in a proper learning environment and then get onto the job.
Mhm.
So
Right.
that is why I took that step and went to UK to study it.
Uh-huh. Super interesting. along with making impact, you wanted to do it in the right way, learn the tricks of the trade, and then make impact with that in your real world projects. What I want to learn about next is what was your journey in terms of getting into your first role after your MSc, and was that in the UK? What did you work on in your first role after you did your formal UX design degree?
Yep, all right. So, yeah, it was right after I completed my master's in the UK. It was in a company called Edify, and Edify is a product based company. And the product is about creating experiences in the virtual environment,
Okay.
which are also web friendly. So, it's more of a learning tool. The people who are using the platform are using it for a learning environment where they are creating lessons. I'll give you an example. If we have to explain a human body to a biological student, we would rather do it with a video or diagrams. But by using Edify, you can actually see inside a human body. If you have VR glasses on, you can actually just see exactly what a human body looks like in 3D and know it in much deeper details that you'd rather do it on maybe a video or just on paper. It also creates experiences for like universities in the UK and also can do it for around the world. So that was my first job, which translated into the second one, which is about the Metaverse project. And they're both companies who work together.
Okay.
Edify and Solius, kind of linked to also the University of Glasgow,
Okay.
which is where the project started. So museums and metaverse were the
Okay.
project.
So in this like country of museums, that was in Scotland, I believe your assignment then. Nice. But I'm curious to know what museums were your baseline.
It didn't have a baseline in terms of which museum. It actually can be literally any museum around the world.
Okay.
So that is how they're building the product, where it could be just any museum that exists,
Yeah.
or any person who wants to create something can create literally anything that doesn't exist also, literally anything. So even if we want to create a space
Yeah.
which is not imaginable, can be done through using tools like this
Uh-huh.
platform. It can have the real experiences virtually or even create experiences that are not possible in reality.
Wow.
But yeah, that was the core idea of museums in the metaverse.
So, Pallavi, let's talk about what designing a museum in the metaverse looks like. But even before that, I would love to understand what was that organization that you were working with when you took on this assignment?
Okay, so the name of the company was Solius, which is a sister company for Edify or a partner company, and they're partnering with University of Glasgow on this project.
Thank you. So, Pallavi, tell us, what does designing a museum in the metaverse looks like? How is it different from designing physical or even traditional digital spaces?
So, firstly, let's talk maybe about metaverse. Metaverse, in a easy way, would be something that is not real in a digital space, but yet feel like real. In an immersive environment, you can have things which are present in the real environment, and you can have things which are not possible in the real environment. For instance, if you talk about museums,
Mhm.
what we can do is go see, move around, read about things that have been mentioned,
Yeah.
objects or artifacts. What we cannot do is touch them or probably even pick them, like dissect them, see things from between, or just scale them up and down.
Mhm.
So those are the kind of things which we can do in a virtual environment. So that is one major difference where we
Keeping it
brought
very
in.
interactive.
Yes, very interactive, where you can go beyond what you can do in the reality and in real environments. And the one thing that comes along with it is it's exactly where you are. You don't have to travel even a kilometer for it. So that is how different it is from reality, yet very close to it. So one thing that we did have to keep in mind was that a mental model of a user
Mhm.
when they are visiting a museum, you don't want to change that completely, even when it's metaverse. So if we say when we are visiting a museum, we want to see things displayed out and we want to kind of just move around, look at objects, maybe with people, maybe without people. It's that is the zone we are thinking when we are thinking of a museum. Like if we say museum, that is what comes to our mind. So that is what we wanted to keep in a similar space. We still wanted, when a user thinks of museum, we still want them to think about a space which has some objects displayed out, which has some paintings here and there, some larger objects, some small objects, and so
Yeah.
on. But what we could do is make it more interactive, make it more effective and user friendly. So that is a mix about how it can be real, virtual, and a mix of both, and in the metaverse. So, yeah.
And I mean, you talked about how users can interact and experience all these amazing things in a new format. But because it's museum, then I believe all of it still has to be art in some sense, right? How is that nuance sort of satisfied that whatever users are interacting with, it's still considered art?
Okay, so this is an interesting thing. Like
Yeah.
with the project that I was working on,
Mhm.
there were two kinds of users that would be onboarded. One would be people who are like museum curators, like official museum curators, who would want to restore their artifacts in a digital space and create that. So, how you think YouTube is for, say, keeping content alive,
Yeah.
in the same way, museum curators would keep their objects and artifacts alive in a digital space using this platform. And the other category of users were where, say, what content creators are doing, where, so what YouTube does for maybe say filmmakers is one thing, and how content creators use YouTube is a different thing. They're using it for their own particular creations and putting it out there.
Yeah.
So, similarly, this platform can also be used by individual creators who want to create spaces
Mhm.
how they imagine it to be.
Mhm.
So, where it comes from is what matters. If it's coming from a museum's name, it's actually a piece of art and a piece of creation. But if it's coming from a single user or somebody who's not related to a museum, then it's their creation.
Okay.
So, but it's all about whether it's art, culture, heritage, or somebody's creation. So it's not restricted to just museums,
Uh-huh.
but it's more about how you want to display it
Yeah.
and how you want to bring your either your culture or heritage out there or your creations.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Pallavi. My next question would be how did you approach the designing of these experiences from an emotional perspective, the attention and learning that comes with a virtual museum environment?
Okay, that's an interesting one
Yeah.
actually. So that's just really important to understand that experiences that are being created are for real users
Mhm.
in a virtual space.
Yeah.
So what we had to keep in mind is that firstly, even when they are in a virtual space, they don't get distracted by the fact that they are in the virtual space. So it should feel real, yet they should get the abilities of having it all virtual, having things to do where they can't do in the real world, understanding their mental models. So by mental models, what I mean is when a user is thinking of something, they should be able to come to it. So while designing for experience, you need to give things where they're easily able to come to something where they're wanting to. So if they want to, they're in a room, they want to exit it, so that exit should be right there, right? They shouldn't feel lost in an environment. So those kind of things. Then if they are wanting to tap on something, that tap should be available to them. So that also is a part of accessibility,
Yeah.
how you're making things accessible for users. And also that is like a mix of the mental model use case where you're not taking them too much away from what they are thinking of it to be. So yeah, keeping those things in mind is what I would say is the key of it.
That is super interesting, Pallavi. And what were some of the challenges when you were translating these tangible experiences like art, history, and culture into virtual formats?
Okay, so honestly, I wasn't myself doing it. I was mostly on the product side.
Okay.
But what I have learned from it is that there are various ways how we can do it. So, what people are using is either technology where we are scanning things in, like, we are taking 3D scans,
Yeah.
putting it out, and then creating a 3D model of it. We can use like 360-degree cameras and those kind of things. Where the challenge comes is with the larger pieces of heritage and architecture and those kind of things, where those tools are not so easily handy. Where, so for instance, there's a big whale sculpture, but
Yeah.
you can't really 100% scan it completely. So that is when the interest of like 3D artists come in, where We have some amazing 3D artists around the world who can create identical, you know, looking sculptures in 3D, and that can be used as a display tool for these virtual spaces. What they should keep in mind is, as I was talking about, dissecting things in virtual environments. So, what we have seen that sometimes what creators do is create the outer view of it, and if somebody is dissecting that 3D model, it's hollow inside. So while creating for some museums, like at least some products where we are kind of allowing dissection and stuff, they would want to create it in a way where even if it's dissected, it feels real. So it's similar to if you would cut a real piece of something, and that would exactly how you would want a 3D piece, like 3D digital piece, to be cut as. So those are the kind of challenges I would say a user would face when it comes to translating real to digital. But yeah, that is just part and parcel of the game. It's come
Yeah.
like it has its way of doing things. Once they know it, they'll be able to do it.
Thank you for that. And Pallavi, with UX design, today accessibility and inclusion is one of the biggest piece that you designers and product leaders sort of ensure when they're creating new experiences and products. That should be something that comes ingrained with your product, right? To make it a more inclusive and diverse product. So, with the experiences that you were designing in the metaverse, especially for audiences who were global and diverse, how did you ensure this?
Sure. That's a very important question in terms of UX and even product. I always, whenever I'm talking to, my peers or even juniors or whoever is kind of putting out there in the product field right now, I always say that accessibility is the first thing to think of,
Yeah.
and it comes along with the name of the product. Like it should go by hand in hand and not even behind you. So that is the first thought. It should be the, priority one on everything.
Mhm.
So when it comes to designing for different kinds of spaces, like whether it's desktop, mobile, or metaverse, or any tool that you may say, it's different from one another.
Okay.
So the basic things is whether you're designing for a 2D space, you would follow particular guidelines that are there in like legalities and terms. So one of the things that we commonly do is to follow the WCAG guidelines, which just, so depending on what you are designing for, there are different kinds of accessibility terms that you would want to learn and want to follow. The basic thing is to follow the double A kind of levels for accessibility on at least desktop and in your mobile, for designing for either mobile or desktop. And those are, I would say, a bare minimum of requirement, where you are keeping the color contrast right, where the type is readable, the typeface that you're using is readable, understandable, where the users are able to navigate correctly, they are able to find the exit points correctly.
Hmm.
Just these are like the very basics of it. When it comes about designing for specific things where it's user driven in a particular field, then they have specific guidelines depending on what they are catering to. So that comes different. One thing that's very interesting about metaverse is it comes with a huge different kind of tools. Like you don't have to have something typing there, you can use your eyes to click a button.
Correct.
So those kind of things come as a very interesting concept. So designing for that is really different. So you can, some things around, just quick things around metaverses, if you are using your left hand or your right hand for your controller, so you should give that kind of an option for your user
Yeah.
while they are
Exactly.
doing the settings for that. So they might want to use their left hand or the right hand. So these are kind of basic things that you should have in every kind of a tool that you
Yeah,
design.
and like with metaverse being such a new experience, new age experience, it's I think responsibility also with all of the biases and stereotypes we've seen in the past with products and design and like in society in general. It is a responsibility that that's done in a more equitable and bias-free way, right? So I'm sure like metaverse is sort of taking that baton forward. Thank you for contributing to that and sharing your experience around it. One, I think, last question around the metaverse, designing for the metaverse is around user behavior and insights. So, what sort of surprised you when you were working on this assignment? What was the most surprising user behaviors that you discovered while testing museum experiences in the metaverse?
Sure. That's really an interesting one. And thank you for asking me because this was a very interesting point of turn that we had during creating this product. So initially, thought was about creating it for a single user experience. Like even though it can be created by multiple people, one experience can be created by multiple people and put out there. And then a user comes online, how we view a video and we can view a experience. Now, experience can be either on your desktop, your mobile, or on a VR headset. Depends on what tool you're using. So during initial testings and pilot rounds, what we figured out that is not only something that a user is looking for. So what also they would want is to experience it with people. Like
Uh-huh.
how we usually do in a museum is probably visit it with
With
someone,
someone, yeah.
or even that's more of an experience that is a shared experience.
Correct.
Then came a point where we wanted to include as part of the product is a multiplayer, like even where we have a multiplayer in games where you can just share a
Yeah.
code and multiple people come online. So that is one thing that we, after getting some feedback on it, included.
Mhm.
But that came out as a really good point, because if you are alone even in a digital
Yeah.
world, and you'll probably just feel lost, and it's like being in a multi-storied building and all alone. Even in such kind of an experiences, you would want to do it with people. That just added kind of a feature for us, and we included the multiplayer thing where multiple users can use a code, join in online, and experience that together.
No, that is very interesting. Thanks for sharing that experience, Pallavi. And I think, like with COVID, and I think metaverse is also sort of
Yeah.
a byproduct of the COVID
Yeah.
era. So, a lot of experiences, whether it be like Netflix shared watching, Spotify shared listening, a lot of these experiences were digitally shared experiences, right? Because people, they were inside their houses, they wanted that community feel, share it with people they love and trust. So that is amazing, like learning these experiences from the user point of view and incorporating that in your digital products. So thank you for sharing. Very, very valid point, as you said. Cool. A lot of learning around how the metaverse sort of is being designed for. There is more of a stability, I feel, in where the metaverse is right now. It will be interesting to see how it sort of evolves in what the initial vision was, and what it will set out to be. But very curious to know, and I think I've gained a lot of more understanding around it talking to you. Am also curious about, like, after working on that product and project, now you're working on AI for healthcare solutions. What has your learning been around that? If you can briefly share that for our audience, because with AI, there is like healthcare is a field which is set to benefit a lot if done in the right way. And I'm sure like a lot of people are very interested in it and are passionate about solving for that domain, right? Yeah.
Definitely. So yeah, I'm currently working for a company called Koru, which is around the healthcare first domain, like healthcare first experiences. I'm designing for a product which is around AI driven healthcare solutions. I won't be talking too much about the product, but I'll talk about the domain. So what is very interesting about AI is that it's out there, like everybody wants to use it to the maximum capacity. And in healthcare, there are a lot of hidden layers, like even if it's not hidden, like there are very diverse range of things that you should do before coming out to the final result. Like everything should be very defined. So in healthcare, AI could benefit in a very, very large way. For instance, I'll give you small examples where I was part of a AI hackathon where I was designing a tool around AI for healthcare feature. So what was the topic was the hackathon was just to create something which where AI could benefit healthcare in.
Okay.
So I was trying to create something where, the providers, or what we call doctors, so they call providers in the US, the doctors, or pharmacists, or all these people around different places, different terms. So how could AI benefit them? The thing that I, after doing some research, desk research, analyzed was, there's a lot of data that comes into for doctors or medical professionals. Specifically, if you talk about doctors, they see hundreds of patients in a day, and they have to keep that in their minds probably for the next few days forward also, because the patient might return. So how could AI kind of benefit them?
Yeah.
So we can create tools where, it's automatically taking in the data, creating some analysis like summary out of it, giving them brief solutions, and that they can decide on themselves that how they can take it forward. Combining data and doing those stuff is something how AI could help them to do. So that is just one example. Bringing in a co-pilot in variety of ways. Like, AI is so vast, you can keep just going on and on. And actually, at this point, everybody is trying to bring in AI wherever and however
Yeah.
possible. So yeah, it's like anywhere you tap, you'll find something AI driven or something like that. But yeah, so
Yeah.
it's possible everywhere. But I also just feel that, is it required everywhere?
Yeah.
So yeah, that is because around the world, AI is taking it off. But I'm not sure as to how much of it is really needed.
Yeah.
Because I always keep a thought in my head that, are we really going in the right direction in terms of making it AI driven in every possible way? Or is it like a good balance, is what is, in my understanding, it should be a good balance. But because the world is how it exists, and everything is like, everybody who just wants to adapt to the newest thing possible, and the newest thing is AI for the moment.
Yeah.
That's what's happening.
Yeah, for sure. No, that is very valid. As you share your journey as well. It was metaverse, now it's AI. How you think around it, where like what experiences actually benefit from this tech is where like you have to sort of set a vision and take it forward. So always like having that question at the back of your mind, as you said that you always question it: is this really required? Are we like, is this near future? Is this long term? And then designing for it, and how user behaviors will probably adapt to it and change towards it. So yeah, thanks for that perspective. My final question around your experiences as a senior UX leader would be, for teams building AI products in these emerging markets, what are some common pitfalls that you've seen so far, and how should designers be avoiding that?
Yeah, it's a very interesting one. I'm actually hoping people listen to this, because what I've really seen, as I was already talking about it, is that people are just going deep down AI without giving it a thought.
Yeah.
And that is the biggest problem. Like, I'll just speak a small bit with an example. If you're calling a customer care for some problem that you have,
Mhm.
would you want that to be a person, or would you want that to be a co-pilot or a AI
Mhm.
voice talking about it?
Yeah.
Probably we would all want that to be a real person, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So we should design thinking AI as a help rather than creating it as a replacement. And getting that balance right is the ideal solution.
Yeah, and like that makes me think, we run this AI product management cohort, and one of the topics there is designing feedback loops, and how having a human in the loop while you're thinking about product design, how you make it more about something that you're getting feedback of how repeatability is solved for, and also how you build trust through your design
Exactly.
and UX experiences, right, in an AI scenario. And very valid when you said that acting as more of a co-pilot, where the human in the loop needs help and makes them more efficient and productive till we like evolve AI in being more intelligent and empathetic.
Yeah, I completely agree, because even recently I was part of a summit kind of a thing where we were designing with AI tools. Like there are so many AI tools out there, even for designing prototypes or all of that. So one thing that we concluded by the end of that activity was, even if we are designing with AI tools as product designers, it's not giving us the desired solution. We are putting it. So how AI functions it with prompts, like you have to enter a prompt and that gives you some solution. So now that prompt needs to be really detailed, and that detail can come out only out of a person who knows the
Yeah.
details. So once you're adding details, and that is like edge to edge detail, even if you do that, you're not getting the desired solution. So you'd rather create it yourself. That saves time. And out of all of that, it's more of frustration. So rather than use that tool to get some kind of ideas, creating brainstorming solutions, and then creating it yourself. So
Hmm.
that was one thing that we also like I had in mind. AI can be of help, but you cannot be replaced.
Can't be a replacement, right? Yeah, yeah. So, Pallavi, thank you for sharing your journey and experiences with us. I'm super inspired by your journey. I would love to ask one final question so that I feel even more inspired. Is like your journey has spanned different product trajectories and you've also navigated it across geographies. What would your advice be for women in product, how they should proceed and how they should be sort of thinking about where they fit in and where they bring impact and value?
Okay, thank you for asking me. That's a very sweet question. One thing that I would say, as women, we do have the edge. It's never the other way.
Yeah,
Even if we are seeing ourselves in a group of 10, we are just one of them. Even then, is the like it is us who has the edge above everybody
for
else.
sure.
Thinking about product design or product management or anything product, it's always to do with making things better for someone and thinking around the users. They're having an empathetic side towards the users, the products, the owners, the everyone around us.
Yeah,
So that is where, as women, we would always have the edge because we are more empathetic towards people around us. So that just solves the purpose, right? Because we are anyways doing that without a job. So if you're able to do that on your job, that's
yeah.
zero.
Added value.
Yeah,
For
exactly. As product designers, I love to say that, as what drives me is that I'm solving something for someone somewhere. And that is just, I think, what drives me and probably drives many of us, that it's problem solving, it is having some impact. So if you are able to do that, I think you're doing it already. So just own your voice and go out there.
Amazing. Thank you for that. Very well resonates with me that we as women we bring the edge and the empathy. So yeah, as product designers and product managers, we're naturally like bound to do well. If we really understand like where we're sort of fitting in the best, really resonate with that. With that, thank you, Pallavi. It was such a pleasure having you on the podcast and learning through your journey. Thanks from my end. Thanks from all of the members of the community and whoever is watching this podcast.
Thank you so much, Swati. It was lovely talking to you today, and really looking forward to meeting you in person sometime